Alright, so today's video is inspired by the video I made 3 months ago entitled Americans Have Nothing Left to Lose. Of course, it's going to be readjusted through the algorithm and different methods of rehashing it. So it's not going to be the same video because you can't do that here on YouTube. So with that said, let's get into our opening monologue. Welcome back, valued worker. Before we begin, corporate would like to remind you to be grateful. Deeply, sincerely grateful for the privilege of earning less than it costs to exist. Your continued struggle fuels our continued success, and honestly, we couldn't be more proud of how little you ask for in return. Today I was talking to one of my fellow McDonald's workers, and he said to me, "You know what? There's no way they shouldn't be paying us more." And I kind of just looked at him like, "Are you kidding? Aren't you grateful for your food stamps, your minimum wage, the fact that you get to wear that snazzy uniform and that fancy hat and wear a name tag that says you're a bum on it?" No, you're talking about a person who is probably close to their late 50s and has struggled their entire life. And yet this person thinks that somehow things are going to get better. I love that about people because no matter how bad things get, they have to look on the bright side. No one can show up to work and frown because remember, if you're frowning at work, you're out of uniform and that's not allowed. So put your funny hat back on and repeat company slogans to every customer that you meet. And remember, you're not just smiling for yourself. You're smiling because someone else is making a lot of money keeping you in that uniform. Anyhow, let's move into our first talking point. So I had to rehash these talking points several times because they weren't in the right tone. And for that, I mean that I like a certain desperation but hopeful, pessimistic but satire. So I try to combine all of these things together in order to get a good script. And then I repeat what was created. So this is our first talking point. The lottery has replaced social mobility. The people you see at the grocery store, your coworkers, aren't stupid for buying lottery tickets. Scratchers is their favorite. They're responding logically to a system where luck is literally more effective than labor. Hard work used to build a life. Now it barely buys groceries. I never saw it from this perspective. But when you see yourself failing at life, and the only hope you have of making a better life for yourself is winning the Powerball, we have failed as a society. You shouldn't have to toil in the fields for 40 years only to be rewarded with the retirement of all proles, which is the end. And that's why people buy lottery tickets. They understand that luck is much more influential on whether or not you're going to be successful. If you're connected to money, chances are you're going to be connected to a better outcome in life. If you're surrounded by other poor people, if you're surrounded by people that are completely hopeless, people that have lost the ambition to continue trying, and their only hope of a better life is to win it big, same type of people go to casinos and dump all their money into casinos. I once knew a guy who had a brother-in-law who had $150,000 of gambling losses year after year after year. This guy had a really good job, but it wasn't enough to build the life that he wanted. Because remember, we're living in a society where even Fox News acknowledges the fact that if you're not making $150,000 right now, you're not doing great. You're a renter. And being a renter is the first step to being homeless. Because when you rent, this isn't your house. This is someone else letting you sleep in their closet while taking nearly 100% of your monthly income and telling you to be grateful to have a roof over your head. In this particular video, I said I was talking about Claire on the Road, in which people who live in their cars or RVs claim to not be homeless, right? Well, if you can't adjust the thermostat inside of where you're staying right now, you're homeless. If you can't lock your front door, you're homeless. If you're paying a landlord to rent a shack, you're homeless. Because a home is your home. You decide what you're going to do there. No roommates, no parents, no one to tell you what you can do. You can sit in your tidy whities all day long inside your own home, drink beer, and smoke whatever you want to put in your pipe. I don't care what it is. That's a home. A home that the bank can't take away from you because you lost your job and you couldn't pay on your mortgage and they repossessed your house. No one can predict when things are going to go south for them. This morning, when I got to the Death Star, I opened up my work stuff and I saw the list of newly, um, what would I call them? Newly people who have a lot of free time. And it frightens you every single day. No one likes to see another person get kicked out onto the street. This morning when I was driving to work, I was staying at a corner waiting for this, let's just call him a mess addict, to cross the street. And he was coming across the street and he had his head down, like near his belly button somehow. His arms were dragging and he was walking around in a circle, like crossing, coming across the street. And I'm like, you know what? The first cop that sees that, he's going to pull over and he's going to take him away. It's also 40 degrees outside, and this guy's wearing a t-shirt and pants. He looked like he just stumbled out of wherever he was sleeping, and he was walking to nowhere. That image right there is the way that our corporate overlords see all of us. We're that guy. We show up at a job that barely pays us, and we're supposed to be grateful to the nth degree. During the bug days 5 years ago, I remember people coming on Fox News and continuing to complain that no one wants to work. And as a person who lived through that mess, most of these people, for the first time in their lives, they got to take a break from work. They got paid more than they were getting paid before, and they finally got to stop and look around. And I feel like that was the beginning of the end for the working class. Because at that point, they realized, oh my gosh, there's something else to do besides work. You can take up a hobby. You can sit at home and think about things. Right now, we go to a job that's making us sick. We come home and there's no hope. There's nothing left to lose when you're putting your groceries on your last credit card and then making minimum payments on all of those credit cards because you were doing a lot better 5 years ago than you're doing right now. Most people's struggle is something that they can't come to understand. At 3 o'clock in the morning today, I woke up and it was just one nightmare after another, envisioning things getting much worse as your employment goes away, as you can't find a job, as even other people look down upon you. Because that's one thing our society's really good at. It's demonizing people who weren't able to be lucky enough to be successful. And that's why the lottery is so appealing to average Joe Six-Pack. Talking point number 2. The economy doesn't need you to succeed. It needs you to stay scared. Scared workers don't unionize. Scared workers don't quit. Scared workers tolerate abuse, low pay, terrible schedules, and managers who shouldn't be allowed to operate a microwave or a lemonade stand, let alone a workplace. You've met these people. I've met these people working in retail. You wonder how they're still around, how they can still come into the office and still treat Every single person that they hire like absolute garbage. When I was working at Fry's, it was the first thing I noticed is that the hiring manager was a person who said, "Look, I gave you this great opportunity to make the minimum wage. Why are you disappointing me by working at your wage level? Act your wage, minimum wage worker." And then they act their wage, and people look at them. It's like, why can't I get a worker that wants to show up, give me 110%, and I give them as little as humanly possible? This is the same job where I was at when I was getting 20 plus hours a week, and the manager walked up to me and said, "Well, millennials team, why would I hire someone for 40 hours a week when I can just hire two people that are going to quit anyway and I don't have to pay them health benefits?" This is the way that they think. Everything is about their saving money. When I was working at Inside, this was something the managers commonly said. "We pay you $16 an hour because we're paying for your health benefits. And because we pay for your health benefits, that's how we justify paying you nothing. Because those health benefits cost us so much money a year." And you you stop and think about that, and the last time you went to the doctor and what it cost you out of pocket. And then they use that against you for needing medical insurance, when the reality is you're not supposed to ever get sick as a worker. It doesn't work that way. You can keep paying into your medical insurance just like you do every single month, but never use it. Never get sick because it's not allowed. A sick worker is a worker that can't work. And what good is a worker that can't work? Today, David VR said something about what Elon Musk said about how in 20 years people won't have to work. Well, think about that. Why do we have poor people? The only reason to have such a large herd of poor people is so you can directly profit from them. As the landlord, as the factory owner, as the person who sells you that overpriced food at the grocery store, everything about having human livestock is about labor and exploitation. If you can't exploit labor, if you can't withdraw their paychecks into your own bank accounts, why would you need billions of people on planet Earth? Remember that series I made on this channel a few years ago? I think it was 5 videos of how Earth is a slave planet, outlining every conceivable way in which you don't matter. Your dreams don't matter. Your illusion that you're going to go somewhere doesn't matter. Recently, a person that I assumed was just going to just give up on life came to this brilliant conclusion that, you know what? Working at McDonald's isn't a career. It's just a job. And every time I'm walking around in a Fry's and they're playing the commercial inside the store for why not work there, they always give it to you like this: join our team, become part of our family. We offer competitive pay and benefits. That's how they get you in the door. It's another comment I read yesterday. The job interview is another piece of the puzzle that's a scam as well. They bring you in knowing full well that you wouldn't be sitting there in that job interview if you weren't at the most desperate point in your life. Today I was walking around in the Walmart after work, and I couldn't believe what you see in there. Everyone who worked in that store was extremely pro. And I'm talking height, I'm talking shape, I'm talking general expression on their face. You walk around in the whole store and everyone looks like that. Every time you look at a person who's wearing a uniform, you're seeing a person who has to skip meals, a person that's not getting what they need out of life. And yesterday, when I was at the salon getting my hair cut, the lady that was cutting my hair told me, "Millennials team, you don't know how many times in the past year Myself and my husband have had to not eat dinner so that our kids could have food. And you're talking about a person whose entire life revolves around one thing. All of their life revolves around making money, either by driving for DoorDash, having her own business, and then working full time for someone else. And you wonder, how is that person struggling? She has a husband that makes the same amount that she does, and she's and her family are still struggling. And the worst part of that entire conversation is this: she said she wished she'd never had children. That's where we are as a society. Even Susie Rottencrotch right now acknowledges the fact that having children in this economy was one of the biggest mistakes of her entire life. And you can't push them back inside. Yesterday, I heard a great expression while I was watching The Epic Economist, and a TikToker came out and it said, "You can't push the horse's poop back inside." And that's what we have right now in our current society. We can't push it back inside. It's out here. We're smelling it. We're walking around in it. We're covered in it. We smell like the horse's manure. Why? Because that's what we are. And we have to embrace what we are. We're not a nation of people who are going to be successful by their own hard work. Luck is a great part of whether or not you're going to get to enjoy any part of your life. As a person who's never had a good day in my entire adult life, I was thinking about this morning. When was the last time I had a day in which I didn't have to think about money? And that was when I was living in my parents' house. And I didn't like living there. I didn't like living under my parents' rules. I didn't like my parents telling me, "This is my house. I just let you live here. You don't have money. We do." And it's hearing that constantly throughout your entire life of your parents treating their house as if you were a person that was in their way. And you look at them and it's like, I didn't choose to be here. You hanging out behind the Taco Bell with that Susie means that I had to be born. I didn't want any part of this world. I didn't want to grow up on a slave planet. But you put me here, and then you threaten me every day with homelessness just because you don't like the way that things are. The house isn't clean. You're not trying to get out of the house. Because let's face it, most Gen Z, where are they going to go? Today's video hit super hard with a lot of people because it goes to highlight what happens when the people that are enabling Gen Z to stay home become NEETs, not in education, not in employment, not in any sort of training of any kind. They're just become your basement dwellers. Eventually, being a basement dweller is not going to be an option. They're going to have to get out there. And this is why I say this. We haven't begun to see the homeless population in this country. There's going to be a day where we're going to walk outside your house and it's going to be like the Walking Dead out there with homeless people. Because that's where we're all heading. Is all the people that aren't trying right now, that don't have the ambition or have given up, will end up out there with no one coming to save them. Because this country doesn't care about poor people. All the problems that affect people who need help right now are not even considered problems. No universal health care, no universal basic income, no universal rent, no universal food. All the things that should be a basic human right are not. And they won't be, because they need you to be grateful to just have a job. The economy runs better when you're desperate for anything. If you aren't terrified of being homeless, you might expect fair wages or humane treatment. We can't have that. Fear is the most effective productivity tool that has ever been created in all of humankind. And that's intentional. So, with that said, let's close out this video. So, ladies and gentlemen of the workforce, before we end today's little pep talk disguised as a video, I'd like to extend a warm corporate approval thank you for your continued obedience. Remember, work starts at 8 a.m. tomorrow. And yes, our friend will be there. And the warrior knows what he likes. He knows what you don't like. He knows you don't like what you make. He knows you don't like what you do. But you know what? Assume the position, proletariat, because it's time to earn a living.